My name's Erica, and as I've said, I'm the co-director of 350 Aotearoa. It's been an awesome day being here and hearing heaps about what's happening in the building sector and the infrastructure sector, particularly with the public health lens, so thanks for having me. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do at 350 Aotearoa, and then have some time to kind of share a bit of a toolkit for how to create change in the communities that you're involved with. We've had an awesome day of heaps of information and heaps of gems of things that you might want to take away. You might be keen to push for a policy change, or you might be keen to change something in your workplace. So hopefully the work that I do can help you to take some of that away with you. So 350 Aotearoa is the New Zealand branch of 350.org, and we're an organisation focused on inspiring, training and mobilising communities to recognise their power to take action on climate change. The way that we create change is through grassroots collective action on strategic campaigns, rather than focusing on individual lifestyle and consumer changes. And you would have seen, I think it was Rafe's graph that had us at 415 parts per million. I was born at 358 parts per million, and the safe level for carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is about 350 parts per million is the maximum. So that's where our name as an organisation comes from, and the work that we do is trying to draw carbon back to that safe level. Yeah, as I said, grassroots changes is the way that we work, and that's based on a belief that everyday folks like you and me have the power to stop the worst of the climate crisis. To effect the massive, broad-scale, transformative change that we need to work together, we need to work with others, and we need to be strategic about where we focus our energy. The work that we do aims to end the stronghold of the fossil fuel industry in our society. Coal, oil and gas companies have played a vastly disproportionate role in releasing carbon emissions that have caused climate change, and they plan to keep polluting for as long as they can make a profit. If we have any hope of keeping temperature rise lower than 1.5, we have to stop the fossil fuel industry from burning its reserves. What they've currently got in reserves is 5 times more than what we can possibly burn to continue to live on this planet. So it's not just about stopping new projects, it's what's in reserves at the moment. We can't afford to burn it. And that gives us a really big problem. So we need to stop their business as usual and rapidly accelerate the transition towards a clean energy future. And then how do we take on the fossil fuel industry, one of the most powerful industries on the planet? I, by myself, am not going to take down ExxonMobil by stopping buying petrol or by locking myself onto one of their buildings. They're not going to bat an eyelid if I try and take them on alone. But what we do is that everyone has stakes in an institution, whether it be their bank, the university, their school, their city council, their union. And these institutions often hold investment portfolios that include investments in fossil fuels. We want those institutions to cut their ties from the fossil fuel industry that profits from climate change by taking those investments away. The beauty of this movement is that anyone can be involved in campaigning their local institutions to take a moral stance and divest from fossil fuels. You don't have to understand the technical details of climate science. You don't have to be a finance expert. Our argument is moral. If it's wrong to wreck the planet, it's wrong to profit from that wreckage. Since 350 launched the divestment movement globally in 2013, forgetting about my slides, sorry. Campaigns have started popping up all around Aotearoa. People who've never been involved in campaigning before have got involved in their church or their city council and got involved in campaigning for those institutions to divest. The focus on the local means that campaigns can happen anywhere and at any scale. So you don't have to be in Wellington, you don't have to go to Parliament Lawn each week. There's a bank branch anywhere, there's a city council anywhere. So it's targeting the institutions that we have some power over and that we're constituents to. It's been a really successful movement here in Aotearoa. Our church has led the way, with the Anglican Church being the first divestment. We've had unions, major universities, city councils, all commit to divestment. Last year we pushed the government to change the standards on KiwiSavers. So from the end of this year, default KiwiSaver funds will have to be fossil free. And we also pushed the first bank in Aotearoa to release the strongest fossil-free policy in the world, which means it won't take on fossil fuel companies as clients, won't lend and won't give investments. So each and every one of these campaigns has basically been a small group of people in your community. It hasn't been big, powerful decision makers. And every single one of these campaigns takes power, social license and money away from the fossil fuel industry. Each campaign also strengthens the power and the likelihood of the next one. So our wins join the thousands of institutions globally that have divested and equates to funds worth more than $14 trillion divested from the industry. Shell's CEO has said the biggest challenge of the company is maintaining the public acceptance of the energy industry in its current state. We're having a real impact. The people involved in this movement are not the people that necessarily usually engage in politics. Instead, we've built a movement where anyone, anywhere can unleash their power to help stop the climate crisis, because we all have a role to play. And all of you in this room are at the forefront of the climate crisis and the housing crisis. The work that you do in designing, writing policy, engineering, planning, and building Aotearoa will shape our response to create a safe climate future and healthy homes for everyone. So I don't need to talk to you about the science or the technological solutions, but what I want to do is give everyone a toolkit to be able to take away from today to create change in your community. So whether that's something in your local community, pushing for policy, whatever it is, I basically use this formula for any campaign I've ever worked on, and it seems to do the trick. So hopefully it will help you too. It's also acknowledging that being a champion for an issue can be really hard work and quite isolating if it feels like you're the only one that cares about something in your workplace. If you're trying to create change from within, it's important to build the relationships around you and have support so that you're not going to be the isolated person that's calling for something and getting the classic Erica always going on about recycling or that kind of thing. So it's also about building the people around you and the allies that you're going to need to actually create change. Cool, let's do it. So, first thing to think about when you're trying to change something is thinking about what your overarching vision is going to be. So often in the campaigns that we're working on, it's that we want to keep fossil fuels on the ground. It's something really big and broad, and what's the vision that's going to get other people on board? Is that you want warm, dry, healthy, low-carbon homes for everyone? And then thinking more specifically about the objectives, so that's breaking it down to a level of the thing that you're going to be able to change and you're going to be able to measure when it's happened. So for example, when we worked with trying to get a fossil-free bank in New Zealand, we were quite focused on KiwiBank. They are the ones that have released this policy. The objective for that campaign was for the CEO of KiwiBank to publicly release a policy that rules out any future investment or lending to coal, oil or gas companies. So that's really specific. We don't want a policy release that we don't know about. They have to be publicly released. And what's a fossil fuel company? It's a coal, oil or a gas company. So thinking really clearly about who it is that's going to be making that decision too. It's kind of the next point. Who's the key decision maker that's going to be able to change this? And this often involves a fair bit of thinking and research, and it's not always the first person that you think of. Another example at the University of Auckland divestment campaign. So it's an investment decision. The university has a foundation which manages the endowment fund, which seems like the obvious choice for who's going to make that decision. But as students and staff at the university, we recognise that we have very little influence over the university foundation. They're a group of people that don't even meet on campus. We didn't know who any of them were. So the target for that campaign that we identified as the core person that we would get an answer from and then could give direction to the university foundation was the university vice-chancellor. So spending a bit of time thinking about who holds power to make the decision, who you have influence over. It's the same in a workplace. You might work somewhere where you've never met the CEO. And they're probably at the end of the day going to make the decision, but you might have an interim decision maker that you know you need to influence, and that's where your energy is going to be focused. Theory of change. this is real campaign talk. I don't know if other people use this language, but this is basically a statement of if we do something, then this will happen because of Z. So this needs to be grounded in what's going to make the decision maker change. What are the influences you need? So often when we're doing campaigns that involve corporates or companies, we know that reputation is probably the biggest thing that's going to shift them. Particularly when we've done banks campaigns, a lot of our banks are carbon neutral and have these win sustainability awards and things, so often it's the reputation and challenging that's the most effective in terms of actually getting them to shift. If you're working internally in something in your workplace, you probably don't want to be tarnishing your organisation's reputation from within, so your theory of change is going to look a little bit different. I've missed this one. The other key thing is allies. So who else do you have around you that's going to want to create this change? What are your connections to people close and influential to your decision maker? And how can you bring them on board early so that you're not battling alone? Values-based messaging. This is something that the climate movement has done an absolutely terrible job of for 50 to 70 years. So when I first started caring about climate change, to be honest, I really didn't get this because I did care about the stories about dying polar bears, and I do understand when people tell me what numbers and figures mean, and when I see graphs I get freaked out, so that mobilises me to action, but most people don't operate in that way. So the way that we're going to bring people on board is not through talking about 1.5 and 2 degrees of warming in parts per million in the atmosphere, because it's pretty boring, to be honest. So the way that we bring people on board with caring about climate is through values-based messaging that bring people on with the things that they already care about. So talking about values, it's the things that guide us, and we want to be tapping into the intrinsic values, people's care for society, care for others, care for the environment, rather than necessarily saying the cheapest option is X. There's key principles to this, which there's an awesome communications organisation called The Workshop that's released a guide for how to talk about climate change. I recommend reading through that, and also their other guides. They've got some good ones around COVID and welfare and other issues as well. But the key stuff in the climate guide is really about leading with the vision. So I already kind of touched on that. It's important to not necessarily start with saying the thing that you want to change. It's about what is the world that you're trying to create. So if I was an engineer or, and was working with projects where we were working with gas all the time, I wouldn't start by saying, I want to stop doing these gas projects. I'd say, I want to work in a company that only installs renewably powered electricity in new buildings. So it's selling the vision of what you're trying to create rather than saying what the problem is initially. You also want to be clear on who can make that change. So it's about emphasising the potential for the people around you to be able to solve the problem and being clear who that is. And it's not necessarily saying we've got a terrible management team or we've got a bad CEO and they're doing bad things. It's about seeing those people as agents for change and making it clear that there are different choices that those people could make if you give them the opportunity to. Also, avoiding myth-busting and negating arguments that aren't supporting what you're trying to do. This happens all the time with conspiracy theories, that we spend a lot of time trying to myth-bust conspiracies rather than just telling the story of what we actually want people to believe. And the way that our brains work, I don't know about psychology, but the workshop communicate this really well, is basically the more time you spend reinforcing the arguments that you're trying to negate, the more you reinforce them in other people's heads. So instead, ignore all that and tell a different story of the thing that you actually want people to remember. Selling the cake, not the ingredients. So that, again, is what's the picture of the thing we're trying to create rather than getting really bogged down in the technical or the policy details. That's very much when you're trying to engage people in joining with you. You do want to have the technical for when you're having a meeting with your decision maker so that you can break that down for them as well. And showing people that they're not alone. So the more that you can say, there's a big group of us at work working on this, or there's other people that care about this, and demonstrating that others are already involved, that's what's going to bring others along to join you. And all of a sudden you'll have too many people and it will be hectic. But that's a problem to deal with when you get there. Cool. Then the final one is tactics. This is the stuff that you're actually going to do. And I recommend thinking about those previous ones before you launch into, I'm going to start a petition, or I'm going to go and do this. Having a think about all of that will make it much easier for you to make effective change more quickly if you're not just jumping straight to tactics. And tactics are anything. It could be something like a petition, but it could also just be having information meetings in your staff meetings. It could be, some kind of stall, or whatever it is will fit kind of the environment that you're working in. I think I got 5 minutes. Is that right? Cool. Last 5 minutes, I'm not going to talk. I want everyone to take a moment to think about something in your current workplace or in your community that maybe it's from today, or maybe it's something you've had in mind for a wee while, that you could go away and change to help foster climate action. We'll take 2 minutes for that. Cool, we have 1 minute. And would anyone like to share more widely than in their peering what they're going to do, or something that they're wanting to change? Yeah? Oh, there's no mics, I can just repeat it.
I would like to start a campaign targeting the City Council, a citizen grassroots campaign, so that once a week, say every Sunday, Oriental Bay and all the way along there was closed to cars, so that just like they have in Bogota and Colombia, they have huge, every Sunday they close off kilometres and kilometres in the city, and everyone takes to the streets. It's a really democratic thing. Be so cool, and we've seen we can do it during COVID, so why can't we do it more regularly? And everyone loves it. You just saw the people out with little kids on bikes. It's really cool.
Awesome. Clear objective-ish, needs to a little bit, on a Sunday, every day, every week, and City Council is the target. Anyone else got something they'd like to share?
Wellington City Council.
Oh, Council's going to be busy after this.
With one stroke of the pen, say, change from it's not allowed to it is allowed to have a residential use of road reserve.
Has anyone got something that they're going to change in their workplace? Or in something that might happen at a community level that isn't council? Yeah?
So I have one for the University of Otago, which, I feel that there are sort of high-level sustainability goals that the university have, but when it comes down to actually sort of implementing them with the facilities people and the procurement teams, those big goals get lost. I'm not sure how to change this or who to target because we have sustainability managers at the top. So they're not the problem. It's somehow this disconnect between what they say and how that filters down to kind of action on the ground. So I don't know if the whole structure needs to. I don't know if the structure of the how the organisation is set up needs to change.